What if I told you that Ferrari has built a car so radical, it could make history, or destroy the future of Hamilton and the entire team? Today we're going to find out why the new SF26 is the most extreme Ferrari seen in 2 decades, and why it's actually scary, but not as you imagine. To understand why the SF26 is so scary, you first have to understand where Ferrari is coming from. The 2025 season wasn't just bad. It was, in many ways, a historic humiliation. They didn't win a single race. They didn't get on the podium even once. Not even in changing conditions, nor with risky strategies, nor with rivals' mistakes. Nothing. And the most symbolic, the debut of Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, ended in 6th place in the championship, without brilliance, without rhythm, and with a dramatic end to the season. 3 consecutive eliminations in Q1 in the last races. Something unthinkable for someone of his caliber. He himself described it as a nightmare. It was his worst year in more than a decade, and not just in sports. Emotionally, it was a hard blow. The Italian press was relentless. The criticism pointed not only to the car, but also to his decision to sign for Ferrari. It was even questioned whether it had been a historic mistake in his career. Charles Leclerc did not emerge unscathed either. Although it was somewhat more consistent, he himself said it bluntly, "It's now or never." A phrase that resonated strongly within Maranello. It wasn't just a statement. It was a warning. If Ferrari didn't give him a competitive car in 2026, his patience would run out. And that would be a political earthquake within the team, because losing Leclerc after having opted for him as the face of the team would be devastating. That internal tension was palpable. In this context of pressure, frustration, and urgency, Frédéric Vasseur made a radical decision. In April 2025, when many teams were still fighting every 10th with their current cars, Ferrari took a completely different path. They abandoned development of the SF25. They froze him completely. They sacrificed the entire season. They channeled absolutely all available resources into the new 2026 car, still in the conceptual phase at that time. It was a decision that broke with everything conventional. In Formula One, an ongoing championship is rarely given up. By regulation, by internal politics, by commercial pressure. But Vasseur did it. I knew that the 2026 technical regulations brought with them a unique opportunity, a restart, a new order. And if Ferrari wanted to become dominant again, this was the only realistic window to achieve it. They risked everything. The wind tunnel, the simulations, the design of the power unit, the suspension system, the chassis, the internal structure of the team, everything was redirected to the so-called Project 678, the code name of the car we now know as SF26. This change in priorities also generated internal tensions. Some engineers considered the abandonment of the SF25 premature. Others feared that if SF26 failed, there would be no turning back. It's not just a question of performance, it's a question of survival. Because a mistake now can condemn them to irrelevance until 2029, and that, in an era where McLaren and Mercedes are strongly reborn, would be the end of any championship ambition. Proof of how far ahead the car was came quietly. The Project 678 chassis passed FIA crash tests even before the 2025 season ended. While other teams were still racing, Ferrari already had a good part of its new generation car ready. It wasn't just a bet. It was a declaration of war. And that's where everything connects. Hamilton's suffering, Leclerc's ultimatum, the pressure from the Italian press, Vasseur's obsession with redeeming recent history, all of that converges in a single car. The SF26. A project that, if it works, can change the modern history of Ferrari. But if it fails, it could be the beginning of the end for an entire generation. This is not just a new car. It is a point of no return. And that's what truly makes it scary. What Ferrari has done with the SF26 engine is not just risky. It is almost a heresy within the ultra-conservative universe of Formula One. To understand it, you have to look beyond what the common fan sees. Because what's under the body of this car may be Ferrari's biggest technical move in 2 decades. At a time when everyone is obsessed with aerodynamics, Ferrari has done something that no one else dared to try. Change the soul of the car. The engine. And not only in its performance, in its materiality. Instead of continuing to use aluminum cylinder heads, as absolutely all modern manufacturers do, Ferrari has chosen to use steel cylinder heads, developed in collaboration with AVL, an Austrian firm specialized in high-performance engines. And yes, this is completely contrary to the current trend. Because steel a priori is heavier. And in Formula One, weight is one of the most feared enemies. Why then do this? The answer is in the new 2026 regulations. The regulations require that power units go from a minimum weight of 120 to 150 kilograms, a significant increase that, although it may seem like a restriction, Ferrari has turned into an opportunity. If all motors must weigh more by obligation, why not take advantage of that extra margin to use a material that gives you thermal advantages, even if it is heavier? An engine can be brilliant on the dyno, but Formula One is not one there. You win on the track, under pressure, under rain, under chaos. And that's where we will know if this play was genius or a mistake of historic proportions. The change that Ferrari has made to the suspension of the SF26 is probably the most underrated by the general public, and at the same time one of the most decisive. Because while the engine draws attention for its groundbreaking nature, it is the suspension that decides whether or not that potential can be used on the track. And here Ferrari has dynamited 20 years of its own philosophy. For decades, Ferrari was a conservative team in this department. Progressive adjustments, continuous solutions, a lot of mechanical stability, even when the rest of the grid was experimenting with more aggressive concepts. That changed radically with Project 678. The SF26 completely abandons the historical front and rear suspension geometry to adopt a concept designed from the ground up, not with the pilot in mind first, but with aerodynamics. Ferrari has opted for a front suspension that works together with the bottom as if it were an integrated system. It is no longer about adjusting the suspension so that the car is comfortable. It is about blocking a very specific aerodynamic platform. The car is designed to roll at a specific height, with minimal movements. This favors aerodynamics, but penalizes any setup error. At the rear, the change is just as radical. The suspension has been redesigned to allow an extremely compact rear, something that was previously impossible with the old concepts. This helps to seal the diffuser better and generate charge more efficiently, but it also makes the car more sensitive to changes in temperature, wind, or tire degradation. This is where the figure of Lewis Hamilton takes on a key role. This is not a friendly car. It is not a forgiving car. It is a car that demands absolute precision. And Ferrari knows that if there is anyone capable of coexisting with an extremely demanding car when it is well tuned, it is Hamilton. But he also knows that if the balance isn't perfect, even a 7-time champion can suffer. That is why Ferrari has developed 2 suspension and chassis specifications since the beginning of the project. It is not a traditional evolution. It's almost like having 2 concept cars inside one. A version designed for high-load circuits, another more versatile one for mixed routes. This gives them room to adapt, but also adds operational complexity and risk of correlation between simulation and track. The SF26 is not designed to hide defects. It is designed to maximize virtues. And that, in modern Formula One, is a double-edged sword. If the tunnel, simulator, and track data match, Ferrari can have a dominant car for years. But if there is a misconception, no quick patch will fix it. This suspension change is not just technical. It's philosophical. Ferrari has stopped building safe cars to build an extreme car. A car that lives on the edge of physics. A car that can be brilliant or unbearable, depending on whether you understand it or not. And it's that context that makes SF26 scary. Because it is all or nothing. A car built without a safety net. Ferrari does not have a plan B. It has committed its resources, its internal stability, and its credibility as a team to this project. If it fails, there is no quick way to recover. There are no easy solutions. There is no room for excuses. Vasseur has said it openly, 2026 is a point of no return. If this car doesn't work, Ferrari's leadership could be completely transformed. The political pressures from Italy, from the media, from the fans, are fierce. Formula One is not just a sport in Maranello. It is a national issue. And that adds a symbolic and psychological weight to the car that no other team carries. But also, there is the figure of Hamilton. And their fear takes on another dimension. Because when Ferrari signed Lewis, they didn't do it just because of his talent. He did it for what it represents. A symbol of success, consistency, greatness. But in 2025, Hamilton was invisible. No podiums. No results. And although he adjusted his driving, although he tried to adapt to Leclerc's style and the car he was given, the truth is that he experienced one of the hardest years of his career. And now, everyone hopes that SF26 will be their redemption. Let this be the car with which you win again. Let him dominate again. Let him close his legacy as a champion with Ferrari. But that is a brutal expectation. It is an immense pressure. Because if the car fails again, if it can't compete from the start, then it's not just Ferrari that fails. His signing also fails. And with it, a narrative that has been building for years. This car is scary because it has been designed to perform, not to evolve. There is no room to grow little by little. It has to work from the first race. He has to show from the first stint that he can win, or the house of cards starts to fall. Because Leclerc is not going to wait another year. Because Hamilton doesn't have time for process. Because Ferrari cannot justify another failure. And furthermore, there is another deeper layer: internal fear. The fear that is not said out loud. What if they don't understand the car? What if the concept is too complex to operate race after race? What if the simulation tools don't correlate as expected? What if the change in suspension and engine demands a level of operational precision that Ferrari, for all its mistakes from previous years, is not ready to sustain? The SF26 is, in many ways, a very high-precision weapon. It can be lethal if handled well. But any mistake, any deviation, turns it into an unpredictable monster. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.